check. 1, 2. How we doing, chat? How are we doing today? Let's get this microphone all situated right here. Is it really gonna fall down on me today? Here we go. There we go. Let's get this right set up. I apologize if this is not the greatest start to a show. Let's get the camera all set up. I wanted to get this ready for you guys because it is rivalry week. It is rivalry week here in the Stadium Pulse. My name is Tegan Randolph, your host for all things college football. We have a jam-packed show for you. This is going to be an absolutely electric show. We have A&M and Texas to talk about, the game to talk about, Alabama and Auburn, better known by its preferred nomenclature, the Iron Bowl. And we got a coaching hire. We have a coaching hire to talk about. It's Eric Morris to Oklahoma State. Should we start with that or should we get into game previews? That's what we got to figure out. Do we want to get into game previews or do we want to talk about Eric Morris, the North Texas head coach, going to Oklahoma State, which I think is a great hire, not to spoil what we're going to be talking about. You know, let's dive into that. Let's actually do this in reverse of what I have in my script. Eric Morris, North Texas head coach, has made a decision. He is going to be the next head ball coach for Oklahoma State. The Cowboys have made a decision. This is a great hire, in my opinion. I fully believe that Eric Morris is a quarterback guru. At least at the bare minimum, the quarterback position should be figured out when talking about Oklahoma State football for the future. We're talking about a guy that can find diamonds in the rough. We're talking about a guy that is connected to Baker Mayfield, Cam Ward, John Mateer, and now, as of recent with North Texas, Drew Mestemaker. And if you know the story about Baker Mayfield and Cam Ward, you know that Baker was a walk-on for Texas Tech when Eric Morris, I believe, was an offensive coordinator there. You have Cam Ward, who transferred from Incarnate Ward to Washington State and then to Miami and had that incredible year. That's 2 number 1 overall picks, by the way. Then we got to talk about John Mateer, who before his injury was looking as a potential Heisman candidate, potential for number 1 overall pick as well. And he's still a great quarterback, went on to go to Oklahoma and followed his offensive coordinator there. But Drew Mestemaker, and I want to talk a lot about Drew Mestemaker for an obvious reason that I believe that there's more than likely Mestemaker's going to follow Eric Morris to Oklahoma State. Now, this is not based on any reports. This is not based on any sources that I have, but it seems like it would be a logical thing for Mestemaker to level up his competition level in terms of his potential NFL draft stock. He's gotten a little bit of buzz as of recent. We're talking about a kid that did not play high school football. That's not an exaggeration. Drew Mestemaker was not a high school athlete. And he's one of the best quarterbacks in the entire country. Bare minimum, one of the best group of 5 quarterbacks in the entire country. It's an insane story. I remember watching Texas State versus North Texas in a bowl game here in the Frisco Bowl in North Dallas. And this kid, Drew Mestemaker, they're talking about it on the broadcast. He doesn't play high school football, and he is just torching a Texas State defense that, frankly, a lot of people torch a Texas State defense. And he comes out this year and he's been balling out. And so Eric Morris was a guy that was going to get a ton of hype, at least this cycle. And I didn't know where he was potentially going to land. I was hoping for a job like Oklahoma State that is moving past the Mike Gundy era. And even though you may look at the reporting and say 21-15 over 3 years at North Texas, you have to understand in the group of 5, I don't weigh records as much as I used to in terms of what a coach has done at the group of 5 level. With the volatility of roster management, There's going to be down years. There's going to be up years. And at the end of the day, you're going to get in a sub or in a slightly above 500 record because the talent management at the group of five is so difficult. North Texas, mind you, has a general manager that was from the University of Houston. I believe he's like 28 years old, if anything younger. I think actually he's 23 or 24. Just an incredible story at North Texas. But let's talk about the Oklahoma State side of things because that's the future. North Texas is already going to be looking for whoever's going to be their next head coach. We got to talk about Oklahoma State. This is a risky hire because it is a group of five hire, but I think it's the right hire. I think it's a damn good hire. At the bare minimum, I'm giving this an A-. I talk about it all the time, and it could be finicky because at the end of the day, winning is winning in whichever way that you can do it. But I really believe with a lot of these smaller programs, there is a distinct identity that you kind of have to stick to. When you think of Wisconsin football, what do you think about? You think of I formation, ground and pound, you're running the damn ball. When you think of Georgia Tech, you think of the triple option, and they're playing a modern version of it. Teams have very distinct identities. When you think of Oklahoma State football, what do you think? Air raid. You think of the quarterbacks. You think of the Brandon Whedons. You think of Justin Blackman. You think of Dez Bryant. You think of the wide receivers. You think of passing the damn ball. And that's not to say Mike Gundy has shifted away from that, but Oklahoma State is sticking to their roots here. And they had to make a decision to move off of Mike Gundy. I didn't disagree with it whatsoever. It is going to be a tall task to revitalize a program that so desperately needed some juice. It was feeling very stale with Gundy as he was very much an oil and water situation with the new era of college football. And you are picking a coach that has a knack for finding diamonds in the rough in areas and at the most important position in all of football. Now, if the quarterback position is a problem at Oklahoma State, then you could say at the bare minimum, we can move off of this guy in a couple of years because this was his one job. Get the quarterback right. Very similar to Hugh Freeze at Auburn. I'm going to give it a couple of years because Oklahoma State's been behind the eight ball in a lot of different areas. And when you're transitioning away from a coach that hasn't been at the forefront of a lot of the modern capabilities for college football, I'll give it a couple of years to get the NIL funding, a lot of the back end stuff that college football fans don't even think about to get a program back to where you need it to. But I feel pretty damn good about this hire. This is a guy that seems like he's going to be at the forefront of innovation in terms of modern college football, really bringing in funding, and he's going to have a dynamic offense. I believe if there's anything that Oklahoma State gets right, it needs to be the offensive side of the ball, especially in the Big 12. That can take you pretty damn far. You're watching a lot of your counterparts or peers around you, especially within that area, really excel. Texas Tech being the key one there. Oklahoma is finally getting its footing in the SEC. And in a world of college football where we have the Indianas of the world, I mentioned Texas Tech, really come to life as a program. I'm sure internally with Oklahoma State, they're looking around and saying, we're bottoming out when we really should have been taking opportunity to take advantage of what the Big 12 is, because Oklahoma State, when they made all those transitions, they seemed like a program that was fully ready to take that opportunity and become what we thought Texas Tech or what Texas Tech is in 2025. And it really hadn't become the case. So very much impressed with this hire. I believe it was going to come down to GJ Kinney. They're always going to report they only gave one offer to one guy, and it's going to be Eric Morris, but very similar, an offensive-minded guy, a guy that can get the quarterback position to make the most out of it. I would give this an A- hire. I think this is a very good fit. I think this is a guy that knows the area really well. When you're at these lower level programs, you want a guy that is able to get the most out of very talented athletes from all different places. I mean, guys that have never played high school football, a Heisman winner from a walk-on, a number one overall pick that was playing at Incarnate Ward, all these different areas. I really do like Eric Morris in this spot. But it's time to hit some game previews. It's time to talk about rivalry weekend. I will say this real quick pause. If this is the first time you're checking out the Stadium Pulse, we've gotten a ton of traction on the channel, and it means the world that you guys are giving this show an opportunity. It is just college football around here. That is my favorite sport on the entire face of the planet. I think it's the best sport. You're never going to find the interactions with fan bases anywhere across the world than college football. But if you're an NFL guy, an NBA guy, this is all powered by Crutchman Media. If you go on the channels tab on the Stadium Pulse, I promise you they have additional content, just like myself. Guys like Dub, guys like Chris do fantastic work, and I'll be on those channels as well. So it would mean the world if you check them out, but at the bare minimum, check out this page. This mustache is all over it, and I promise you, if I haven't earned your sub now, I'll get it sooner or later. It's completely free. All right, enough of me promoting the channel. Number 3, Texas A&M will be traveling into DKR Stadium to face off against the number 17 Texas Longhorns, the Lone Star Showdown. And a quick side take here before we dive into this game. I talked about it on my TikTok. The Lone Star Showdown is a bigger rivalry than the Red River Shootout. Now, before you start typing, I need you to hear me out. I'm not saying the football games compared 1-to-1 is better than the other. I think that the Red River Shootout, if you were to stack rank every interaction between Texas and Oklahoma and Texas A&M and Texas, that's easily number 1. I don't deny that. But I also believe if you got to 2, 3, 4, and 5, majority of those interactions and the heat that is built from them is going to be Texas A&M and Texas, from baseball to basketball, even softball. But I would lean Texas and Oklahoma for softball. I mean, they just met in the national championship. I fully believe that the heat, as someone that has lived in the state of Texas my entire life, I completely understand. I'm biased in that sense. The hatred between these two programs, I think if they had played the entire decade of the 2010s, it probably doesn't have the same amount of heat. But because they were separated for so long in the biggest sport, I think you can make a fair argument that the Lone Star Showdown is a bigger rivalry than the overall Red River rivalry. But like I said, we have a game to talk about at 6:30 Central Time, November 28th. The first question, before we talk about anything else, in my opinion, who is going to make the first play on the special team side of the ball? We can talk about offense, we can talk about defense, and we are going to. Both of these teams have electric punt returning capabilities. We're talking about one side of the ball with Texas that there's been parts in this season. I think Kentucky is a great example, and you could point to other examples as well where they've had huge plays made on punt returns that have put them in a position to win football games. And I think this is going to be a close battle between two very heated programs. I think Casey Concepcion, you can go point to the LSU game. His punt return is what really broke that game open, because if you remember going into halftime, it was a close battle, and that was the one that really broke the dam. It exposed the game into a completely different light, into blowout territory. If I'm a punter in this game, I'm punting it out of bounds. I'm not even giving them an opportunity to go make a play. As well, we're talking about a huge advantage for Texas in the kicking situation. The field goal advantage that they have in these close defensive battles is massive. We're looking at Texas A&M that just recently had to bench their kicker who was missing 28 yarders. Shout out Rennie Bond. Now, it will be important to note that Jared Zirkle was injured. You didn't really want to bench the starter that had to replace him because he was doing his job. It's a whole thing. I will say the first question is, who's going to make the bigger play on the special team side of the ball? Because I think it's going to come down to that. Because I think both of these offense and defensive comparisons do not pair well for both sides of the ball. What do I mean? The defensive line versus Arch Manning, because I frankly believe that the defensive line is going to win against Texas in their offensive line every single time. The offensive line for Texas has just been outright bad. It's not a good unit. Even though we could go look at the sack numbers and see, oh, Arch Manning against Arkansas only got sacked one time. They must be getting better. Go put on the tape. Just take a moment. It's not hard to find. They'll put cut-ups of it all over Twitter. It's Arch Manning shedding off, 300-pound linemen, going full Lenora Sellers, trying to create plays. The offensive line is outright not good. And whenever Arkansas didn't just send 3 and actually sent 5, maybe 6, they were getting home. And Arkansas is not a great pressure rate team. So I fully expect Texas A&M, with a better talent roster and the best team at getting to the quarterback, is going to be able to get in front of Arch Manning, a quarterback that, if you put on the tape, is really feeling some of the scars of getting hit. There's a lot of, we're sitting back in the pocket and we're fading away, or we're worried about the pressure that's coming up here, and we're kind of leaning into our throws, which leads to a lot of balls getting sailed out. There's been a lot of those clips on tape that if I'm a Texas A&M defensive line or Mike Elko, I'm sending heat, and I'm sending it often and early, and I'm not sending it on a 4-man down, you just straight up go get the quarterback. I'm sending a corner. I'm dropping Cassius Howell into coverage. I'm making a young quarterback think as many times as I can. But then on the inverse, Marcel Reed, he is going to be facing a defense that I've kind of made a mention of this on TikTok. The Missouri defense, and I think the Texas defense are comparable in the play style that A&M is going to have. We're talking about a very zone-heavy defense for Texas. They like to sit back and watch what the quarterback is doing. I'm not expecting Marcel Reed to be able to go create with his legs a ton in this game. What Marcel Reed needs to be is methodical, and he did a great job on the road against Missouri in checking out of certain plays, being able to read defenses. Now, this is another talent level jump from a Missouri defense I think is a pretty good one to an elite defense from Texas that will have an Anthony Hill out there, Colin Simmons, a tier 1 pass rusher. So it is going to be a talent jump, but we've seen Marcel Reed against a zone defense do quite well. I think you're going to have to be methodical and wait for things to get open or anticipate them to get open, better said. And I don't really expect there to be a ton of success on the ground. Not many teams get a ton of success throwing or running the ball against the Texas defense. Gunnar Stockton is one of the best quarterbacks when we're talking about going and dissecting a defense. You're going to need a performance like that from Marcel Reed. One of the concerns that I have is when you are facing a zone defense, when Marcel misses, it's high. What that allows, if everyone is facing the quarterback and playing the right zones, that's where these safeties can tend to wait for a ball to sail high and go get a turnover. And little things like that can make or break a game. I can't predict turnovers because they're lucky half the time. I mean, I'm not saying a forced peanut punch fumble isn't lucky, but you can't predict turnovers to happen unless you're Louisville and Miller Moss, which is pretty easy. But what is the prediction today, right? We asked what is going to be the special teams play? Who's going to make that? The Texas A&M defensive line versus Arch, and it's going to be a completely different overall scheme than what Arch was dealing with Arkansas, which Arkansas was sending 3. They were running a ton of zone. Texas A&M is going to run a ton of man coverage. It is a complete inverse. They want to get to the quarterback and trust their corners on the outside. Problem with Texas's offense is Arch is doing an incredible carrying job, but he can't catch the footballs for the wide receivers. The wide receivers have got to make a play out here. And then Marcel Reed versus the zone offense, or the zone defense, better said, he's got to be methodical. It's got to be 8, 9, 10, 11 play drives. And can Colin Klein simplify the offense for him to get him comfortable in the spot? Because I fully expect a ton of energy and emotion to be on the A&M side of the ball. 2 things before we talk about the prediction. What is on the line for both of these teams? Number 1, Texas A&M, if they're to win this game, they're in the SEC championship for the first time since being in the SEC. Now, frankly, as someone that is a fan of Texas A&M football, you're not the most angry in the world for not making it to the SEC championship. Being a home playoff team that gets to go face off in the first round with one of the best environments is great. Personally, with A&M never making it, there's a little bit extra juice there. You throw in the fact that last year, 2024, Texas was a team that walked into your stadium, knocked you out of your SEC championship conversation, and set you to be 8-4. It's almost poetic that we have flipped the script into 365 days later, and A&M is now the team that could send Texas to be 8-4 after they were the preseason number 1 team in the country, had national championship aspirations, and their playoff hopes will be done forever, or at least for the 2025 season. Because Texas still has hope for the college football playoff. They still have one last gasp, one last, data point into their playoff dreams. 9-3, a win against a undefeated team, top 3, especially if they win convincingly. They could still find a way into the college football playoff. But the reason why I'm going to pick Texas A&M to win, spoiler alert, I'm picking them to win 17-13. Is because it is not a completely different Texas A&M team from 2024. Yeah, we have Casey Concepcion, we have Mario Craver, Jamarian Morrow, a true freshman, and some pieces on the defense. But there is so many pieces and critical leadership guys that have been there in 2024. They were in that building when you went to that locker room and half of the Texas roster went and stomped on your logo. It's one of those rare spots in college football, and I say rare because it is a dying part of the sport where it really does matter what logo you're wearing. It matters about the brand. With so many people changing in and out of teams, that has kind of died off in 2025. I think with Amaj Reed Adams, Torian York, Marcel Reed, Ruben Owens, Le'Veon Moss, and many, many others on this roster who all experienced that night in November and that collapse from that month and everything that just completely went down the drain that specific night where you didn't put up a single offensive point against Texas, that is still ringing in the back of your head. It's important to note that they basically had 2 weeks to prepare for Texas. You weren't really preparing for Samford. You could probably sleepwalk. You could have benched your starters in the first quarter and probably still won that game. I think this is a team of destiny. I think this is a team on a mission that still has everything in front of them, and they are working with house money. They're not going to be knocked out of the college football playoff. Would it be kind of like how Ohio State, when they lost to Michigan, it would be a really tough pill to swallow and maybe a sign of things to come in the college football playoff? Maybe. But I think the Texas A&M team is the better team. I think they're the better coach team. They've had more time to prep, and they're going to be healthy. Or at least that projects. So I'm picking Texas A&M to win. I expect them to finally put up points and keep up the streak of beating Texas in DKR Stadium. I haven't mentioned the home environment because it's a wine and cheese convention for DKR. I'm not moved by it. So that's my prediction. Texas A&M 17, Texas 13. All right, let's get a little bit of water for any audio listeners. Damn, we got 2 more games to talk about still. We're at 22 minutes. If this is your first time on the Stadium Pulse, welcome. This is a college football show. My name is Tegan Randolph. I appreciate you giving this an opportunity. If you want to click that big red button that says subscribe, a lot of analytics say you guys aren't. But even then, just at least check out the page. It's free. I understand it's taking up your time. And any time you give me is truly appreciated. It's time we talk about the game. If you don't know what I'm talking about when I say the game, I don't know what to tell you. You must be a new around here. We're talking about number 1 Ohio State traveling to Ann Arbor, Michigan to face off against the number 18 Wolverines. 11 a.m. kick or big noon kickoff, November 29th. One of the best days in all of college football. Some would argue the best day in college football, and I think that's fair. It's rivalry weekend. The Saturday on rivalry weekend is one of the best days of the entire year. Because unlike traditional preview and predictions, I like to go look at the stats. I like to go see what are some of the trends. Where could a team exploit this area of the field? Is this team good on third down? Is this team good at penalties? Do they get penalized a lot? All these different things. Doesn't matter. This is the easiest script that I've had to do all season. We're looking at a game that I truly can take logic and throw it out the window. It doesn't matter. And last year is a great example of that. Michigan couldn't throw the forward pass, and they walked into the shoe and beat the national champions. That is something that happened. So I could sit here and try to tell you, Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, they're just so much better than the cornerbacks against Michigan. And on paper, where football is not played, you're damn right. They are better football players. It doesn't matter. It's the game. I could talk about how Julian Sayin, it has played at such a great level, could break the completion percentage record, is a better quarterback than Bryce Underwood. But when we get on that football field for Saturday and it's big noon kickoff and it's in Ann Arbor, Michigan, doesn't matter. You wipe everything you think you know for a game like this. But I'll still ask some questions, and I'll try to normalize the conversation without trying to get into, wearing a tinfoil hat and saying, they just have their number. And it could very well be the case. There's things like that in college football all the time. I think of Georgia and Tennessee as a great example. Georgia just has Tennessee's number, just like how Alabama has Georgia's number. There's just things in the sport that happen all the time. And it could be the case that Michigan just has Ohio State's number. I mean, it's been 4 straight years, could be potentially 5. It's important to note that Ohio State wide receivers 1 and 2, Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith, projected about 30% to both play. Now, that's not to say 30% that both of them are out. It is one or the other. Probably Carnell Tate reportedly struggling with something with his Achilles. Might be better to be safe than sorry, especially as he is going to be going to the NFL draft. And to talk a little bit less about, I guess, some of the numbers and the first down, third down percentage and all that. My number one question in this game for Ohio State, let's start there. What is your mentality going into this game? Are you playing to lose, or are you playing, or better said, are you playing not to lose, or are you playing to win? The difference between those two are very different. We're talking about one side of the spectrum where you're being very conservative. You're not taking those fourth and shorts. You're punting the ball back. You're shrinking the game down. You're playing the Michigan style, and you're letting them drive the narrative. You're leaving the game up in the air. Or are you being aggressive? Are you taking risks, even though you're on the road with a young quarterback and a very talented roster? But we've seen Michigan be able to punch up their weight class with less talented rosters. It just happened 365 days ago. If I know what the mentality is of Ryan Day, Brian Hartline, I'm going to have a good idea of what this game is going to be. And that's why I feel a little bit more confident that Ohio State's going to win this game. Because it's like, no way. There is no way that you walk into this game saying, we're going to be conservative again. We're going to try to run the ball. We're going to try to beat Michigan at our own, or at their own game. That's how we're going to win. That's how we're going to break the streak. Because if they go and try to do that, because you could start to nitpick Ohio State a little bit. Frankly, they have not played a game that they've had to truly get up for in months at this point. You could make an argument, maybe Illinois, maybe Washington. That was the trendy upset pick that if they are a fraud, they could lose that one. But they really haven't gone up for a game since like Texas. And I don't confidently tell you that I feel great about their rushing defense. The numbers look great, but have they really been tested against an offense like Michigan that has an identity? And they know exactly who they are. With a wide receiver in Andrew Marsa is extremely talented. Bryce Underwood as well is very talented. You never know. To the other side of the ball, if we're to talk about Michigan, what's your mentality? Am I about to see the play calling with Chip Lindsey that we saw with Oklahoma in Michigan, where it's bubble screen after bubble screen? It's very conservative. You're not really unleashing the playbook. Are you just going to try to run the ball and control the clock and get to second and 7 and 3rd and 4 and try to convert those every single time? Is that how you're going to try to win the game? Because unlike when you had Davis Warren at quarterback, I think you can open up the playbook a little bit, and it's going to free up the rest of your identity where you want to go back to running the football. I think Michigan has its distinct path to win. Very similar to last year. Shrink the game down and get to Julian Sayin. Get to the quarterback. Make him, for a guy that has played the quarterback position for barely an entire season, make him double take. Make him think a little bit longer. Get to him. Rattle him. We've seen it, like I said, with Arch Manning, that there's this scar tissue of getting hit. Make him kind of jump into the deep end, get popped a couple more times. He hasn't truly been hit in a very long time. He's got clean pockets. There's a reason why his completion percentage is incredible. It's not because he's navigating a super difficult pocket and throwing on the money every time. He's got a clean pocket. Now he's made the throws, but you got to get to the quarterback, because if you really let this secondary sit back for Michigan, even if Carnell Tate's out, even if both of them are out, the next guys in line are damn talented too. And you don't want that to be the breakout game. And you're definitely going to need like a special teams play. You're going to need a turnover. And I'm going back to the original script for any traditional, I guess, upset, that you're going to need a special teams play here. You're going to need a turnover there. I think Ohio State breaks the streak. I really believe that this is the game that Ohio State breaks the streak. As much as I could convince myself that, oh yeah, Michigan, they just have their number. It's in Ann Arbor. They have a more talented quarterback. I'm applying logic. Logically, Michigan should probably have a competitive game here. I think Ohio State wins 34-20. I mean, if I really want to be logical, I guess I could say logically Ohio State should win by multiple touchdowns, and maybe I'm going down that rabbit hole. This game has had me in a mental pretzel. I'll say that for the short form or the medium form content that I usually will end up seeing this. My logical side of the brain, better said, thinks that Ohio State's going to win this 34-20. I'm sticking my guns to it. I'm willing to admit that I'm wrong after the fact, but I'm not going to just sit here and blindly pick Michigan because they've been able to do it year in and year out for the 4th straight year. I'm willing to be wrong for the 5th straight year. I'm not going to break away from what I believe is the correct answer, that 1 + 1 = 2. It's not 3. It's not 0. 1 + 1 = 2. Ohio State has the better coach, the better quarterback, the better overall roster. And even though they're traveling on the road, they're going to find a way to win. So I'm picking Ohio State to win. All right, we got one more game left before my computer dies. Where are we at? 7%? We may have to make this a quick one. To be fair, this is going to be a relatively quick prediction. Let's talk about the Iron Bowl. If you don't know what the Iron Bowl is, just like when we were talking about the game, this is Auburn, this is Alabama. We have the number 10 team in the country, the Alabama Crimson Tide, traveling into Jordan-Hare Stadium. Before we talk about any football here, what do you know about Jordan-Hare Stadium at night? What do you know about it? I know it's a damn spooky place. Nick Saban knows it. Does Kalen DeBoer know about it? Kalen DeBoer, this is his first time going to Jordan-Hare Stadium at night. You really don't understand it till you experience it. You don't really get to see some of the voodoo magic of players turning into the ghosts of the legends of the past iterations of Auburn football till you actually get there. And I think this is a tough matchup for Alabama. Auburn is not a team that is exactly what their record says they are. This is a talented roster. There is a reason why there's a lot of excitement for, if they were to not get the right hire down, that they could be easy pickings for a ton of talented players, Cam Coleman and many others. This is a really good defense with an interim head coach in DJ Durkin who wants to be a candidate for the full-time job. And there's a reason why, even though I believe that they've zeroed in on a candidate, it's a wait-and-see situation, because as an Auburn administration, how are you supposed to watch a guy go beat your biggest rival and then immediately say, yeah, we're going to fire him and go get the other guy? DJ Durkin wants this job. Based on every report I can read, DJ Durkin wants to be the Auburn football coach for full time, and this is his big tryout. Now, even though many people have looked at Deuce Knight go and beat up Mercer, he will not be the starting quarterback. It was announced today Ashton Daniels will return to be the starting quarterback against the Alabama Crimson Tide. A lot of people are going to push back on it. It is a tough spot to ask a true freshman quarterback, though very talented, to step in and try to go beat the Alabama Crimson Tide in this spot, even though you're at home. You're going to be having to simplify your playbook way too much. And frankly, if I'm DJ Durkin, I'm putting Deuce Knight into some packages. He's that type of athlete, and that type of size is something you could definitely have some more design plays for. I would be very disappointed if they didn't at least implement Deuce Knight into this offense. Ashton Daniels, veteran quarterback, is going to keep the floor relatively higher compared to what would happen with a potential true freshman quarterback, but your ceiling gets elevated if you put him into some packages. The number one thing, if I know this statistic, I will then know how this game will go. How many turnovers does Ty Simpson have? Is it 0? They're winning the game by multiple touchdowns. If it's 1, I'm expecting a close game. If it's 2, Auburn's probably winning that football game. Ty Simpson, as of late, has had some accuracy issues. There has been plays to be had. There has been a lot of meat left on the bone. It is like eating a chicken wing and you're only eating one side of it. It's like eating a rib and you're just basically going through half the slab and you're throwing the rest away. There's been a lot of meat left. I mean, guys are open. Ryan Grubb, if anything else, he has been able to get guys open. The rushing attack, a lot to be desired. But Ty Simpson's missed a lot. That's why I've dropped him on my draft board. He has missed a lot, and it's been a lot of high. I mean, he has missed high when he has missed. The problem and the dynamic I have with this preview is I really do believe that we have a very similar situation of Oklahoma and Alabama and Auburn and Alabama. Auburn's really good at stopping the run. That was their MO. That was their gimmick. Their defense is a very physical and talented front seven going against an offense that doesn't run the ball, that can't run the ball, better said. It's this late into the season. I'm at the point where I could say Alabama cannot run the football. So it's the same dynamic that I said with Oklahoma and Alabama, where I was like, well, even though you're good at this one thing, what does it matter if you can't really go for it? And then we go to the secondary. Now, I was outright wrong about the Oklahoma secondary. I didn't think that they were that good. I was wrong. This Auburn secondary, there's a lot to be desired, but can you make 1 to 2 plays? Can that be the position group that plays the best football of the entire season? Because if they can, I expect this Auburn offense to find just enough. And just enough, if they play the game that I expect this defense to play, might just be 17 points, might just be 20 points. Now, that's a lot to ask from Ashton Daniels and maybe Deuce Knight for some plays and Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton and all these different pieces. But you can run the football against Alabama. That's been their problem. And Auburn's got some very talented players in that running back room. And I think if they want to play a very much shrink the game, Vanderbilt style game, make every possession count with the inefficient offense that Alabama has, plus Jordan Hare at night, maybe a couple turnovers from Ty Simpson, I think Auburn's going to win this game. I can't just chalk pick Ohio State, Texas A&M, and pick all the favorites. You got to pick a weird one for rivalry week. Probably a couple. I think this is a tough spot for Alabama. This is the prime spot that Kalen DeBoer, with all the pressure in the world, could fold. And it would be very interesting to see, is this the backbreaker for Alabama fans to turn on Kalen DeBoer? This is a defense that has had moments where you've been able to run the ball against them. Auburn, if anything else, is going to try to run the football. This is an Auburn defense with the backing of being at Jordan Hare at night and a secondary that, if they play better than their average, could be enough to win this football game. This is Auburn's Super Bowl. This is Auburn with a head coach that is going to throw the kitchen sink at Kalen DeBoer, where Alabama, it wouldn't shock me if they come out playing pretty tight. All of the consequences are on Alabama's sideline. Auburn is playing with house money at home in a voodoo stadium with a lot of spooky actions to be had. I'm picking Auburn to win. I think Auburn wins. I originally said 27-24. I don't think Auburn is able to get 27 points. I'm actually going to cut both of them down a full touchdown. I'm going Auburn 20, Alabama 17. And the Auburn Tigers have a huge decision on their hands, to which DJ Durkin, or more than likely John Summerall with Tulane. And I cannot wait to see who they end up deciding if and when they beat Alabama. But with that in mind, that was the Stadium Pulse, ladies and gentlemen. I'm at 3% for this, my computer. So I appreciate everyone for tuning in. We've had plenty of people stop in and check out the show. And I will say this every single time. Just check out the show. Sooner or later, I will earn your subscribe, and it would mean the world if you just gave it an opportunity. My name is Tegan Randolph. This is the Stadium Pulse, powered by Crestman Media. With that in mind, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys next time.